Over 2 years ago, when I decided to make Sea of Thieves content, one of my first videos was ranking the updates. Now, with 9 major updates later, how much has this list changed? Before we get into it, tell me your favourite and least favourite update and why in the comments. Also, no adventures or build rat adventures count either. We've got over 25 to cover, so let's go. Starting off the list is the weakest update we've had. Fate of the Damned dropped in October 2020 and suffered from the two-pronged attack of game dev woes, COVID-19 and winding down for the holidays. Fate of the Damned was the sequel to Fort of the Damned from the year prior. The main content was a voyage sending you around various locations, ending up with an easier fight with Grey Marrow. It boiled down to methods of getting ritual skulls and flames of fortune. The cosmetics weren't great either, it was essentially Fort of the Damned from Wish. The voyages got removed too after the event ended, as they were tied to Rare's new event system. At least the Soul Flame Captain costume is kinda cool. No offense to Rare, but Black Powder Stashes was the update that caused me to quit Sea of Thieves, in conjunction with its successors. See, after Anniversary's massive success, this was the first named update afterwards. With Rare saying they were not doing anything to Anniversary's scale again, it really felt like this was the end of support for Sea of Thieves, simply because that's how live service games go. The content was just mercenary voyages that had you going around to various forts digging up powder kegs. It had some cool cosmetics, but that's about it. It really felt like recycled content at the time, and you can no longer access these voyages. Dark Relics suffered exactly the same issues as Black Powder Stashes. It's the same sort of stuff we'd been doing for 18 months, just with skeletons involved and more digging at forts or islands. It did have the edge of having the Reaper chests, which were new chests visible on the map at all times. The locations were marked by beacons too, and only spawned in shipwrecks. The idea was to encourage fighting over them, and to be fair, it worked. There were some nice cosmetics for the continuation of the mercenary set, but otherwise it was a pretty small update. Smugglers Fortune is really more of the same as its predecessors. This time though, players had to dig up rag and bone crates. The voyage that had you digging up these crates did place players in a concentrated area, so the challenge did derive from PvP. Simply dig up the crates at Shipwreck Bay and bring them back to Duke. Although, the star of the show was the humble storage crate, which did not actually exist up until this point. You could now use it to store anything found in your pockets, and they were found washed up on beaches. This was a super useful tool we take for granted today. Also, the construction of a mysterious dig site at an uncharted island began, with Stitcher Jim's return and the appearance of a masked stranger. Something big was at least being teased. Festival of Giving 2020 was the last monthly update. Rare was truly winding down for the holidays and gearing up to the shift towards seasons. Unfortunately, there wasn't much in terms of content aside from some events. 12 Deeds of Giving, which added daily challenges, Flooded Presents, which tasks you with giving away treasure to other crews, and finally Grogmanay, featuring various challenges that had to be completed whilst drunk. The last one was pretty fun, to be fair. The cosmetics were really good for this. I have to say, it was only above the previous updates because I actually played this one. The last 3 were a case of me logging on, seeing there wasn't really anything game changing, and logging off. People will probably put this one lower, I think. Lost Treasures probably kicks off our decent to good updates. Simply put, Lost Treasures added a bunch of missing cosmetics and much needed quality of life changes. The big one was Tall Tale checkpoints. Prior to this, they had to be completed in one sitting, or if you got sunk or the items lost, it was time to start again. Between the sailing and the puzzles, it could be really frustrating to deal with that, and the Shores of Gold Tall Tales are at least an hour plus on your first playthrough. Mermaids got better, the rowboat seat and chest now had separated prompts, and the Ferry of the Damned now had a weapons armory. This update also added the event system, but the one we really care about is Gold Rush. This is a daily event, which increases gold from anything turned in up by 50%. Thank you, Lost Treasures. Cruise of Rage's main feature was the Chest of Rage, a new mercenary voyage which tasked players with retrieving the chest from the Devil's Roar. The chest would eventually heat up and explode, setting fire to the ship and surrounding players or enemies. It could also be cooled down with water. As the Chest of Rage was the only brand new cursed chest added to the game, it gets a pass, even if it's the most annoying chest in the game. It does have cool lore significance as well. Molten Sands Fortress over in the Roar was the only active fort for the entire month. Molten Sands Fortress can fuck off. It's miles away from anywhere, it was tedious, and if you sunk, prepare for the 4-hour sail back. It was so far away that no one really bothered with it, even if it was a guaranteed Chest of Rage at the time. The Black Market refresh was great, as were the new Legend cosmetics and Ashen items with this update. Season 5, incredibly, is the lowest down of the seasons and the first to hit the list. Some people really love the myriad of additions to the game. When it was marketed as a bunch of features that have no point, it doesn't really sell me on it. Sitting, sleeping, fireworks, rats, burying treasure and the quest board were some of the features. Rats are great if you're hard of hearing or deaf. You can then visually see when the ship's sinking without having to check below deck. The storage crate change is what makes this update a decent one, allowing players to empty and fill storage crates with the press of a button. The menu music is awesome too. There's loads you can say on this one, but we don't have the time. Legends of the Sea was a great celebration of all the great parts of the Sea of Thieves community. Many people who had Easter eggs in game now had them turned into commendations that players could seek out, and others got Easter eggs added with the commendations. A new NPC called Umbra appeared on the Lagoon of Whispers and began selling tattoos earned by finding the Easter eggs. The cosmetics were insane, with a bunch of basic stuff being released, the black market was updated, and the Ashen Dragon set was continued as well. It would have been higher if I had an Easter egg. No, it doesn't really matter that I wasn't making Sea of Thieves videos then. Still, it's funny to see some of the biggest names in Sea of Thieves not have an Easter egg. Even Boxy got one over at Steven Spoils in Season 9. Vault of the Ancients is arguably the last good monthly update. You could tell Rare were preparing for seasons after this was concluded, as it was just downhill from there. The new Gold Hoarder Voyage, the Wayfinder Voyage, had players tracking down a key to a vault. The vaults were filled to the brim with a large amount of treasure that had to be collected in a certain amount of time before the door closes again. A brand new chest was even hidden behind a pillar puzzle. These voyages are sublime and I love doing them to this day. Larina, featured in the Athena's Fortune novel, was also introduced, someone we all know and love. God, I miss Duke. I think you guys will be confused at this one since it's ranked way higher than the previous iteration. The Festival of Giving 2019 was a pretty meaty update overall. Ashen Skeleton Forts appeared, meaning players would now find Ashen Guardians, Keymasters, and new Skeleton Lords, with a buff to the loot as well. The Reaper's Hideout got an awesome Christmas tree and was the place to deliver these new gifts. They could be obtained from Voyages or the new Ashen Skull Forts. The real reason this ranks higher than expected is a brand new Tall Tale. This time though, it canonically happens at the start of the game as it doubles up as the tutorial. Sea of Thieves finally shows new players the ropes with the Pirate Lord as their guide, all set up on an instant server with a unique island to boot. And Old Sailor's Isle is a treat to explore with an amazing soundtrack. It's pretty plain as a story installment, but necessary and beautifully done. Season 1 was the very first season. No shit. It's very clear that this was in an experimental stage in terms of content levels and the new season pass. The new content was pretty much just the voyage and the season pass. This time, it was the Merchant Alliance's turn to get a new voyage. The Lost Shipment voyage had crews track down a missing ship, using various clues and a map of their last known route. It was really great, despite the fact it was really buggy on launch. The season pass was underwhelming due to the cosmetics available. The only real cosmetic anyone wanted was the Pirate Legend curse. Oh, and Duke started moving around the map. That was really the most interesting bit. It was a monthly update stretched to a season, but it's not treated as harshly because it was only a month after the last monthly update. And the Dark Adventurer set was added, being our most recent brand new cosmetic set to be fully completed. Season 2 managed to beat out Season 1 due to a few factors. The Fort of Fortune was a newish world event that mixed Ashen Lords and regular skeleton forts together in one tedious PvE encounter. As it was long, many players could fight over the Pirate Legend loot inside. Ultimately, it made world events worth it again. Rare even made a horn sound for when the Fort of Fortune spawned. The second feature was commodities sold by the Merchant Alliance. It's essentially a stock system where each week different outposts have supply and demand requirements for different materials. Buy low, sell high, and try not to get chased by the Ashen Cursed Reaper Galleon. These were awesome until Rare saw we were having too much fun with it and nerfed them so hard it made basically everything else more lucrative. The Season Pass was better, the Plunder Pass was better, and the Emissary Ledgers finally got new rewards. Duke moved around more, and a new building was being constructed at the outposts. So this is where the ranking gets really difficult, as some of these updates are some of the greatest of all time. I seriously struggled with this list from then onwards. Although number 1 for me was an obvious spot, but I reckon it will shock you. Ashen Wins is where the updates begin to get great. The core feature was a new world event. In the wake of the Heart of Fire Tall Tale, Flameheart's lieutenants had awoken from their slumber. The Ashen Lords were here and made Skeleton Lords look like a bunch of fannies. These bullet sponges had 3 phases, a myriad of new fire-based attacks, and even dropped a new weapon when defeated. The Ashen Wins skull acted like a handheld flamethrower. The rewards were the new Ashen Wins sails and 4 tattoos themed around each of the 4 Ashen Lords. The world event carries this alone and is the best land-based PvE encounter in the game. A shiny raid like world event. I can't believe I've just done that. It's basically my personality at this point, and complaining. Fort of the Damned was the quintessential world event update and was the first player activated one. And yes, it is a world event. Crews had to track down the Flames of Fate by dying in certain ways and retrieving a ritual skull from skeleton fleets or from voyages. Then, with all these items gathered, head to the newly transformed Old Boot Fort and begin the world event. Everyone and their mum would be hopping for these bad boys, as it was the easiest way to get a chest of legends. If you don't get rolled by another crew, of course. A bunch of outpost cosmetics were released, as was the black market refreshed. Oh, and the Banjo was added. Season 9 is the newest update for Sea of Thieves. A shiny raid like world event. I can't believe I've just done it again. While the season is still young, it made a bunch of changes to the game to make it feel that much smoother. The harpoon change, causing it to drop loot behind you, is the secret weapon like the storage crate change. The Chest of Fortune is a personal favourite addition to the Fort of Fortune, with a great reward to boot if you turn in 30 of them. These last 5 weeks are some of the most fun I've had with the game ever, and easily the best world event fight since 2018. The season pass is the best yet too. It's amazing how far it possibly the smallest season is, small but mighty it seems. I'm sure we all live by that. Season 4, oh Season 4, where do we begin? Overall, this update is held back by one thing, and that's the supremely limited shelf life of the content. Season 4 added the Sunken Kingdom, a collection of underwater dungeons for players to explore featuring puzzles and platforming sections. Then there were the treasuries, underwater forts that had players fight waves of skellies, ocean crawlers and sirens. The environment work for this season is probably second to none. Music, world building and lore is mind-numbingly great. I love going to these shrines and I loved reading about the not great warrior and his journey to become the Sea King. It also had a raid-like voyage that had us travelling across 3 of the shrines in order to open a vault in the Shrine of Ancient Tears. Then you get a fucking curse at the end. Lots of loot is on offer across these activities too, but once your commendations are all done, you never have to return here again. Rare really should have added a merfolk faction that could only be progressed with the sunken loot, and a mermaid curse for getting to level 75. How I love you Season 4. Haunted Shores represents one of the biggest and most interesting monthly updates, and it spawned the biggest meme for this game to date. The giant bubblehead, my main man, Captain Flameheart. Flameheart's ghost fleet became one of the greatest, if not the greatest world event, despite annoying the player base with his unending drivel. The world event had us destroying ghost ships before eventually facing the Burning Blade. Finish the world event, Flameheart fucks off, for now, and you get these new Phantom Cannonballs. The best of which, the Wraith Ball, will launch a screaming face at your foes when fired. The Burning Blade sails were also up for grabs should you best it 10 times. The world event doubled up as an Order of Souls voyage, minus Flameheart and having less waves. It's the weakest of the new company voyages, but the world event carries. More shanties were added too, so you don't have to listen to the same 4 over and over again. It's a smaller update that's carried by the charisma of Flameheart. This is probably the most controversial pick, as I know many people found Season 7 to be pretty meh, especially as it began the trend of 4-month seasons, and the delay changed our update cadence as we know it. Then mix in a bunch of bugs and a milestone system that left people wanting. So why is it so high up? I really wanted ship naming, cabin decorations and ownership. I banged on about it for 2 years, and I got it. I can yo-ho with the lads on the bloody Leviathan, and that's all you need to know. Ships of Fortune is one of the few PvP updates for this game, and it was a damn good one. Ships of Fortune added the emissary system. Players can now vote to represent their chosen trading company, doing actions from picking up skulls to digging up chests, earn progress towards their emissary flag level. If you get to level 5, you earn 1.5 times the gold and reputation. Even more so, they added a new quest you could claim from your chosen faction once you hit level 5. Not only this, but the Reaper's hideout was completed, and the Reaper's Bones faction had appeared. This PvP focused faction would accept any loot, but encourage players to fight one another and steal from each other. The Reapers could sell emissary flags retrieved from sunken player ships for lots of gold and reputation, and if they raised an emissary flag themselves, they would be marked on the map for all to see. Arena got an update too, streamlining the mode, and reviving got added as a mechanic as well. All companies got costumes and a new ship set. As an update that's used every day and so integral to the game's design, it's only not higher because the above updates are even better. Forsaken Shores is the first Year 1 update on the list, and is the only update to release a full-on map expansion, even if it remains pretty dormant nowadays. The map expansion was truly special, as exploring the new landscape and dealing with the hazards of the Devil's Roar was challenging. The story essentially continued Cursed Sail's story indirectly, and introduced Stitch Jim. Along with the map expansion, a new merchant quest was added and the rowboat too. The latter was a much requested feature, something we take for granted to this day. Overall, the weakest of the Year 1 updates, but a great update nonetheless. Season 6, where to begin? Season 6 was unfortunately the longest update through no fault of its own, and would have been top 5 if not for it. The content was split into 2 parts, the Sea Forts that turned out to be some of the best PvE content the game has to offer, and later, due to story constraints, we got the Legend of the Veil. Veils are the crown jewel of voyages in this game. They feel fresh each time, they aren't too long and are very rewarding for the time you put in. The module system made it so much more replayable. Then, to top it off, we had the exciting hopes of new story content. The 2 greatest adventures saw players hunt down the Shrouded Ghost in the spiritual successor to the Hungering Deep. Then, we all got to fight over the fate of Golden Sands in Lost Sands. The other adventures were okay, but this update was, as a whole, spectacular. Heart of Fire has the benefit of being one of the largest monthly updates and probably the second best anniversary update we've had. The main piece of content was the Heart of Fire Tall Tale, the direct sequel to the Cbound Soul. Heart of Fire is the second best Tall Tale simply because it's dripping in atmosphere. The Amazing Gauntlet has 3 paths to encourage you to play it 3 times, with less frustrating traps too compared to Shores of Gold. We get to follow in the footsteps of Stitcher Jim on his journey to become an Ashen Lord. It's such a shame this was the last Flameheart Tall Tale. We also got the Thieves Haven run for Pirate Legends, making Pirate Legend voyages less tedious and concentrating them around Thieves Haven for optimal PvP encounters. Coupled with this, Rare dropped the Chain Shot and Blunderbombs. Both of these items have fundamentally changed the sandbox forever. It's the second best monthly update for a reason. Shrouded Spoils was the quality of life update we all needed. Rare dropped some stuff that fans had been begging for. New Megs came to town, including the elusive Shrouded Ghost. Krakens and Megs dropped their loot. Mermaid statues now drop gems. Fog was introduced. Skeleton sloops appeared. Even more so, Deepest Ship customization released, allowing customization of capstans, wheels and cannons. The Skeleton Forts got buffed in terms of loot, with the new Stronghold keg becoming a sandbox staple. It even had the amazing Wailing Barnacle ship to earn. Shrouded Spoils is the update Season 9 was based on, but the OG reigns supreme in terms of quality of life. Cursed Sails was the second major update to release. Whilst it was quite small on the surface, it introduced a new AI threat in the skeleton ships. Each week, players would have to travel to different areas of the map to defend that area from the onslaught. These ships became emergent encounters and a world event after the event ended. Rare saw how difficult these would be for one crew and added the alliance system. Now, players could team up for rewards, or betray each other should they feel like it. The Brigantine was the star of the show. There was no ship for 3 players to enjoy prior to this. It was either struggle with the galleon as a 3-man crew, or leave someone out. No longer was that a problem. Cursed Sails also marked the beginning of the overarching narrative, with Wander the Warsmith locating the Burning Blade and becoming cursed, serving the will of the legendary Captain Flameheart. Everything we experience today in terms of story is a result of this campaign. Cursed Sails was monumental for adding requested features, and that's why it's so high up on the list. The Hungering Deep was an extremely special time for Rare and Sea of Thieves. It was the first shot at redeeming the launch state of the game, and it set the bar high for updates to come. I don't think anyone would argue this update was massive, but it did have a special air around it. The Hungering one was never revealed in trailers, in images, or what have you. The first time players would see it is when they summoned it at the end of the campaign. Yes, it could be annoying to sail around finding Merrick's journals and amassing 5 people to play the shanty, but it ended up one of, if not the most special encounter in this game. Note, Hungering Deep is the only real update to receive a fully fledged sequel when the Shrouded Deep released last year. There's a reason for that. And if you disagree because you couldn't find a 5th person, grow up. That's what the speaking trumpet is for. Or you could just kidnap a swabby. The Cbound Soul was the first update to continue the story of Sea of Thieves properly, several months after anniversary. I booted up Sea of Thieves after the long break mentioned prior, and I was hit with this. All I knew is that a new title screen with awesome music meant good things. And then I hopped on and played the Cbound Soul. It remains my favourite tall tale ever. The music, the visuals, the unravelling mystery, and the big reveal of Captain Flameheart returning. That bloke's speech gave me chills at the time. I'd previously read about him in Tales from the Sea of Thieves. It was mind-bending to see the big bad make it into the game. I went from a Sea of Thieves lore enjoyer to being obsessed with it. Cbound Soul also added fire, a brand new mechanic that had been planned from launch and was coupled with the release of firebombs. This rekindled my love with Sea of Thieves, and I haven't taken a break since. Now you know why I'm the biggest Flameheart supporter in history. Season 3 was the biggest Sea of Thieves update ever, in terms of popularity anyway. It put Sea of Thieves back on the map. This was because of two key components, Jack Sparrow and the fact it was a complete surprise. Seriously. Partners, insiders, Falcor, you name it, no one knew of this or expected it at all. So when the Xbox Showcase rolls around in 2021, we get this complete surprise reveal of a pirate's life. 5 beautifully crafted tall tales with Easter eggs galore, and the formation of the Dark Brethren was a massive win in my book. They were all a treat to play through, particularly so as there were no insider melons spoiling in every social media comment section 8 weeks before it comes out. To top it off, we were treated with a new weapon and 3 new enemy types. The first land AI threats to be added since launch that were not made of calcium. Overall, it could have been in the top spot if there were 9 surprise Flameheart tall tales. Our runner-up is the most controversial placement on the list, considering the amount of people who hate PvP in their PvPvE game. Season 8 was amazing, and I don't care what the Alliance server weenies say. An on-demand PvP mode in the adventure sandbox that had people siding with the Pirate Lord or Captain Flameheart is the single coolest idea in this game. Skill-based matchmaking made it mostly fair too, when it works. Diving to seek out foes was a massive part of the cool factor. And then we got 2 long requested curses, hideout expansions, and some mind-altering cutscenes when we received those curses to boot. Rare even managed to fix a bunch of the issues with Season 8 quickly after release. PvP, as much as the hit reg sucks, is the endgame content for me. As tedious as it can feel, getting to level 100 in either of the new factions is the most difficult but rewarding grind in the game. Flameheart's hat and sword also made it a much needed appearance. It would have been number 1 on the list had the rewards been better. Level 1 to 100 is barren, the skeleton curse isn't what we had hoped, and the Burning Blade ship is surprisingly absent, with the Magpie's wing being released. Nonetheless, Season 8 is easily the best season and the second best update of all time. Was there truly any doubt about the number 1 spot? The November 2020 Pirate Emporium update reigns supreme as the best update we've ever had. I particularly love how it was released with no new gameplay content wedged between 2 of the weakest updates we've had. The trailer truly sucked me in, showing off the delights of paywalled cosmetics and not even mentioning the new Devil's Roar vaults added to the game. We yearn for another update like this, and I cannot wait to see when we get a sequel to it. With that being said, that ends our list. What's your favourite update? Let me know down below in the comments. If you liked the video, make sure to subscribe and drop a like. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. Oh, you really thought we were done? Of course it was going to be the anniversary update. I was hoping to fool some of you with the last one. Anniversary is the single greatest content update we've ever had, and happens to be the largest. 9 tall tales, fishing, arena, harpoons, and an overhaul to the food system all wrapped up in one neat package. There is a reason we've never had an update of this magnitude again. It was the update that truly rebooted and saved the game. Shores of Gold remains the best tall tale we've ever had and is a lore fan's dream come true. Fishing was much needed and requested. Arena was removed in March 2020, no one really liked it that much, but harpoons are awesome. So there we go, the most daring pick ever for number 1. As we've already done the outro, we might